If you're a driven, active person who wants to reach and pursue a higher quality life with some ambition, then guess what? This podcast is for you. This is the Driven Athlete Podcast. What's up, y'all? It's your man, Dr. Kyle. Welcome back to the Driven Athlete Podcast. We got a really cool guest with us, Ryan Conforti. Thanks for coming in, man. I know you're a busy dude, so appreciate your time coming in.
Thank you. Yeah.
So tell us more. Just Ryan's a black belt Jiu-Jitsu expert.
Yeah.
He owns his own Jiu-Jitsu gym, Rogue Wave in West Palm.
Correct.
Tell us more about Rogue Wave and where it's located.
So Rogue Wave is off of Belvedere and Dixie in Industry Alley, which is kind of like this cool artistic small business center just south of downtown West Palm Beach. And we've been in there for just over 3 years now and specialize in no-gi jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and a little bit of kickboxing too, because in addition to being a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I'm also third-degree black belt in Taekwondo and have some judo experience and a couple other things as well too. So try to like incorporate a little bit of everything, but primarily Brazilian jiu-jitsu, no-gi jiu-jitsu is what we do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Explain gi or no gi.
So gi is the traditional form of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You wear the kimono jacket that people always associate with like judo, obviously.
Yeah.
And then no gi jiu-jitsu, you don't have the gi. You wear like compression rash guards, almost like a surfer would. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the grips of a jacket. So it's a little bit faster, slipperier, more similar to wrestling as far as the feel, but you do all the submission attacks and everything that are in jiu-jitsu, and it's a lot more popular now. And the reason why the culture of jiu-jitsu transitioned into no-gi was because of the popularity of MMA, where obviously they don't wear gis, but they still have to do jiu-jitsu.
Right. So the gi is just the jacket, the white like karate jacket that people would think. Right. And then you can use the jacket if you're doing gi jiu-jitsu, you can use that for grappling and gripping and stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas the no gi, they have like Under Armour or rash guards, and you don't have that element part of it.
Right. Yeah. So in the gi, you have chokes that require like the collar of the gi, and you can use those grips for really good forms of control. And then no-gi, you have to get a little bit more creative in terms of how you actually grip your partner, just like on their neck, on their wrist, and things like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. What got you interested in jiu-jitsu in the first place?
So I always wanted to do martial arts as a kid, whether it was because of Power Rangers or Mortal Kombat, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, just like from as far back as I can remember, but never had the ability to do so as a kid. And then even when I was in middle school and high school, I went to an art school, so they didn't have sports like a traditional school was, so I couldn't even get into wrestling. But when I went to college, they had just free martial arts clubs. So there's a Taekwondo club, there was a Kung Nu club, which is like a Vietnamese karate. And I was on campus anyway, so I was like, oh, I'm going to go do it. And then right away, obviously, I enjoyed that. So probably not even a month later, I was looking for stuff around my house as well. And there was an MMA school that had just opened. So I also joined there so that I could do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and get more stuff on the ground than what was offered in the Kung Nu classes. So I was just doing all of that all at the same time. And that was back in 2005.
Cool. What explain the difference of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo, Muay Thai, all the forms of martial arts, right? Martial arts in general has all these different elements, right? Different styles.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So, there's a bunch of different disciplines and mindsets behind each one, but a lot of them can just be categorized into like their sport form. So real old school traditional Taekwondo it's it's just fighting and includes everything that exists in fighting. But as a sport, as like what they've chosen to sort of like master, and the focus of the techniques that they wanted to explore was all based around kicking. So in Taekwondo, especially in the sport form and in competition, it's, head kicks score higher than a body kick. They don't even acknowledge leg kicks. They don't really worry about punches at all, because they want you, the rules and the scoring system force you into a situation where you're really only going to be kicking, and you want to be kicking to the head. You want to be kicking in the air. You want to spin, because all those things score higher. So a flying, spinning head kick scores
super high,
a lot more than just a roundhouse kick while you're standing.
Okay. So Taekwondo is kicking.
Yeah.
And in the sport of like, you get points based off of landing head kicks or body kicks.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And then what Muay Thai, what's that?
So Muay Thai there's a very heavy focus on kicks as well. Their kicks score more than their punches. Punches don't really score, but they do punch a lot more. They punch a little bit more, almost similar to boxing, which has no kicks at all. But the difference with Muay Thai is that also incorporates elbows and knees, and you could also clinch. So you can actually grab onto your partner, hold onto their neck, and throw knees and elbows in a really close range. And then they also score heavily sweeps. So you can trip your opponent and knock them down. You can't wrestle them to the ground. You can't do anything on the ground. Can't do any of that in Taekwondo either. So what they look for is very fast, very hard kicks, and they allow kicks to the legs, sweeps, and they like knees a lot too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And then boxing and kickboxing are just upright, standing, striking, kicking, and punching.
Right. So boxing, everybody's pretty familiar with boxing. There's no kicks, there's no knees, very little clinching, no elbows. It's all just an expression of what you can do with your hands. And it's really an expression in how to not get hit by somebody who's trying to hit you.
Right.
So it's really good to watch from the outside, like the defense and the movement. Kickboxing is the same exact thing, but it allows kicks. Don't really allow kicks. Some scoring systems don't allow kicks to the legs. Some do. So it's upper body kicks, but they reward the same punches and clinching that you would find in boxing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
On the topic of boxing, what are your thoughts on the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight coming up?
I think it's going to be one of the biggest, if not like the biggest sporting event that you could do, because they were very intelligent in putting it on Netflix, because everybody has Netflix. It doesn't cost anything. It's not a pay-per-view, and it's going to be live, which Netflix rarely ever does anything live.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's going to be something, it'll be a spectacle that everybody will watch. Competitively, I don't know. I mean, Mike Tyson is older. He's still always going to be extremely dangerous.
Yeah. Watching some training videos, he's still like super swift.
It's tough because he came back before. He had like another match with Holyfield or something, and like there was some sort of agreement that they weren't going to try to knock each other out. So it was like a lot of body shots, and it went to a decision or something. So the thing with boxing is it's always tough to like not assume that there's something going on behind the scenes.
Interesting.
Like it's unfortunately that sport has just been riddled with controversy over like, is this fixed? Is somebody getting paid off? I mean, I don't think Jake Paul has had a fight that somebody hasn't suspected that somebody was paid off, which is a shame, because it's not like he's not good. But he knocks out Tyron Woodley, and everyone just assumes Tyron Woodley was paid off. And he probably wasn't, but there's always a conversation behind that. And so even before this match even happens, they're already like, it's already assumed that I don't think Tyson would ever take the money or something like that, but it's like already assumed that Jake Paul is going to win and probably get paid to do so.
There's a lot of skeptics involved.
Well, it's hard not to see the motive behind it, because if you're involved in any way, shape, or form in the sport of boxing and its promotion, you absolutely want Jake Paul to win, because he's going to fight again. He's going to bring eyes and money to the sport. Everyone will tune in for Mike Tyson, but is Tyson ever going to fight again? Probably not. So
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
so there's almost like that's what they want. Whether or not that's what they get, I don't know. But it's very difficult not to look at the majority of sports through the lens of WWE, where like the best thing is that they can predict the outcome and they can get the results that they want. So it's
Right.
it's an
So wait, you mean WWE's not real? Wait a second here.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So continuing the conversation, all the facets of martial arts, then what jiu-jitsu is, explain jiu-jitsu. It's only grappling and rolling. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it all takes place. I shouldn't say it all takes place on the ground, but the majority of the techniques take place on the ground, because the only things that you do on the feet are the wrestling aspects of how you get somebody to the ground. After that, all the positions, all the scoring positions take place on the ground, and then you can end the match with a submission, whether it's a strangulation or a joint lock. So that's how that's scored. They're looking for pins, similar to wrestling, and then eventually the offensive actions that lead to a strangle or a submission.
Gotcha. Which then leads to the victory or points scored. Is it usually, does it always end in a tap out, or it's like it goes until someone taps, or are there points like in boxing?
There's points. They don't do rounds like boxing or MMA. So it's one round in, depending on the competition or depending on the rule set. Say it's a 6-minute match, and within those 6 minutes you have to try and submit your opponent. And if you don't, and it's a competition that uses a scoring system, they tally up the points, which are based off of positions. There are competitions that don't have points and they're submission only, but
You
even
just go until someone submits.
yes and no. There are things with no time limit, but the majority of them all have time limits. So if there's no submission in a submission only competition, at the end of the time limit, they'll either do an overtime round where you do the same thing again. They'll do an overtime round where it's the first person to score, which is usually the first person to get a takedown. Or they'll even set up overtime rules where you start in a specific position that's very close to a submission, and then
go from there.
Yeah, and it's if you escape or you get the submission, you win that part of the overtime round.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then your gym, Rogue Wave, it's a jiu-jitsu gym. You guys also do kickboxing instruction and classes?
Correct, yeah.
More fitness based, or is it like instruction for competition?
Instruction for competition.
Okay, cool.
It's like point Muay Thai, which is kind of like just below, say, like amateur kickboxing level or amateur MMA. We'll probably get into that stuff at some point as we have students get more and more experienced. Myself and Ray, the other kickboxing instructor that I have, like we have higher level experience and MMA experience, but because kickboxing isn't the primary focus of our school, and because a lot of the students that we have there are beginners, it's really just about like learning the art of Muay Thai and kickboxing. But sometimes people want to compete, so we kind of tailor things more towards like point Muay Thai, which is all the same rules. It's just a little bit more controlled, a little bit safer, and it's more of like a beginner level, entry level to competition before you start going like 100% full contact.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And
you guys also do fitness classes at Rogue Wave too, right?
Yeah, I do 3 times a week in the morning. We do class it's mostly kettlebells and body weight, but I'll incorporate resistance bands or steel mace or steel club or medicine balls or a couple other functional equipments. Because it's a jiu-jitsu school and we have mats, we don't do anything heavy with like barbells and stuff like that. Maybe in the next the bigger and improved version of Rogue Wave.
Next phases.
Yeah, we'll have like a full on gym for stuff like that. But yeah, right now we have like a pretty cool little group that comes in 3 times a week for kettlebell workouts and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Nice. So you guys jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, instruction, and kettlebell functional fitness classes.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. What would you say, like, well, you guys have really good, I mean, you yourself, you're super experienced and knowledgeable in MMA, black belt, and then also recently you got a certificate for best competitor in 2023 or something like that, or highest ranked jiu-jitsu competitor. Is that right?
Yeah. We compete a lot, and I still compete a lot. I try to compete at least once a month because it just kind of helps stay in that groove. I can't seem to get myself out of this mindset of like I need to like lead by example and lead from the front.
Right.
So if I have my students got to go compete and I'm going to be there to coach, so long as there aren't so many students competing, that then I want to jump in there and compete alongside them. And if I've found that if you compete often, you're way more relaxed. You don't really get anxious going into the competitions.
Right.
So once that happened, it kind of like snowballed into this thing where I think for the last 2+ years, I think I've just competed like every month, like just nonstop. And luckily I do well.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, that certificate, you were the best ranked jiu-jitsu competitor in 2023. Is that what it was?
Yeah, within this organization, the New Breed Federation, which is like a local, I shouldn't say local, it's a national competition circuit. They go around the country, but they hold a lot of events. They'll do like, they're in Florida like every other month or something. And so they're the most common competition for us to sign up for because they're here so often and they're pretty big. So I guess I did enough of them in 2023 and did well enough in the competitions that I did that I was the number 1 ranked athlete in the country within New Breed. It's not ADCC or any like super high level competition, but it's still a national competition. It was kind of cool to get that because I didn't know that they even did that, or that I competed enough to even be considered for it. But I guess I did.
That's cool, man. Well, congrats, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a huge event. That's a great accomplishment. It's awesome.
Yeah, in our school, we've won like best adult team twice within that organization for like a specific event. Like we went to an event and we got so many gold medals or something that we were the best team in that event. We've gotten that a couple times now. We usually place top 5 or top 3, and we don't have a lot of competitors when we go do this thing. And sometimes it's 5 of us versus schools that have like 20 competitors.
Yeah.
But the difference is like all 5 of us get gold medals.
Yeah.
So when they tally up the scores, it's like, well, actually, this is the best adult team. And so we've done that since we've opened. We've gotten awards for 2021, 2022, and now 2023. And already in 2024, we've placed in the top 3. So I wouldn't be surprised if, again, like sometime this year, we ended up with the best adult team again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If you were to describe, people I'm sure reach out to you a lot, and I would imagine a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to get hurt, or like, this is scary, intimidating, I don't want to get like my arm ripped out and then punched in the face.
Right.
What would you want to convey to people of like, what is jiu-jitsu? What is Rogue Wave's version of that, like in your culture?
So, I mean, in jiu-jitsu, there's no strikes. So you certainly shouldn't be getting punched in the head or anything like that in jiu-jitsu. The biggest thing, I think, as far as my approach to the classes and my approach to sharing jiu-jitsu is a lot of jiu-jitsu schools come from MMA schools because that's where most people get introduced to jiu-jitsu is through MMA and UFC. So a lot of jiu-jitsu schools are attached to an MMA school, or it's an MMA school that has jiu-jitsu classes and then a jiu-jitsu instructor. But Being that we are primarily a jiu-jitsu school, and I've made it a point to not include like an MMA program at all. As much as I like it, and I like teaching it, and I like training all aspects of martial arts like dynamically like that. Our school is just a jiu-jitsu school, so it takes away a little bit of the intensity that you would find in an MMA school. It also keeps people that are looking for MMA out of that school. So that helps. So we really focus on being almost like a traditional martial arts school, just happens to be doing jiu-jitsu. And so there's a lot of effort and focus on the technique and learning the art of jiu-jitsu, and it takes away a lot of the like aggressive competitiveness that you would find if you were in an MMA school where competition is a heavy focus and you're fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we're not a fight school or MMA school at all.
So the culture is different, as in like it's not as aggressive and intense as an MMA, full MMA gym would be.
Yeah.
Focused on jiu-jitsu, and you guys are a little bit more community based, and like you're mentioning, like people, like if you get, working on, and it's just practice. Like there's no winners or losers. It's just everyone's practicing the art of jiu-jitsu during your sessions or whatever.
I've found over the years, as a student myself and other schools around, where it can be very competition based, and being part of like MMA schools, like MMA is an individual sport where you're fighting another person. So the mentality behind it is very different. And if you carry that over to jiu-jitsu, it could be a pretty unpleasant experience, because jiu-jitsu by its very nature requires you to work with a partner. And so what happens or what I've seen a lot in people trying to share jiu-jitsu is it becomes very competition based. And so you'll see when they go to spar, it's just two people trying to like kill each other to a certain extent. And then what happens is, especially beginners don't actually get better. They don't actually learn the art of jiu-jitsu. They just learn how to be tough. So then they get tough enough to kind of like withstand the beatings at these other schools. And then they get to like a higher level where now they're handing out the beatings to new students, but like they still haven't actually learned anything. So like sometimes we get people from other schools and they come in as, say like a blue belt or something that they've been training for a couple of years, and like their jiu-jitsu is terrible. They're just really, really aggressive. And it's like, well, that aggressiveness doesn't really work against somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Right. And it's not a skill with a lot of advantages. So we tend to focus a lot on the technique and learning it. And one of the things that I think sets us apart is like we're very into what's happening like right now in the sport in real time. Like what are the athletes doing right now? What are people practicing right now? How have these positions and techniques evolved? Because it's also very easy to sort of just have a school and that's it. Like we have a school, we teach jiu-jitsu, and it's a very bare bones curriculum of like, played out, unevolved technique.
So things evolve and change a little bit within the sport.
Yeah, it's still it's changed quite a bit. There's been a big change, like a big evolutionary jump. I would say like in the last 10 years, maybe even last 5 years of jiu-jitsu from what it was before that. So I think even now there's probably been 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different kind of like evolutionary jumps within jiu-jitsu as it's become more popular and as more and more competitions take place and people start being a little bit more artistic or more creative, or they just find more efficient ways to do things.
To do stuff, yeah.
That really is what it comes down to is what is the most efficient way to achieve this goal.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
What is it that you, like what draws you back consistently to jiu-jitsu? What do you like about it so much?
It's fun.
Like, what makes it fun?
Yeah. It's fun because there is a lot of creativity to it. It's also, there's a lot of dynamic dynamic parts to it. So it's like you're never getting presented with the same puzzle over and over again. You might see similar things, but there's always like something a little bit different when you're training with somebody or rolling with somebody, where there's something slightly different with this puzzle. How do I solve it?
Interesting.
And so it ends up becoming a lot of fun mentally, physically, kind of going back to what I was saying about like not having this like overly competitive or overly aggressive approach to jiu-jitsu is as far as like training goes, like I train every day. I train multiple times a day. I would teach, like we have like 8 classes on the schedule a day. And it might have like its wear and tear, but it's not the same as like, man, if we trained really hard and aggressively, like you would only come in like twice a week or something. But we do it in a way where, and jiu-jitsu is kind of easy to do this, is where you can train like every day and it's totally fine.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot more, and I remember you talking about this before, that because I've never done it before, right? And the experience, like, so we don't know what to expect or like what it looks like or the aspects of the sport. I remember you saying before, it's definitely like a chess match.
Yeah.
It's thinking ahead and making sequences and moves to pin somebody or to get a joint lock or a strangulation hold to pin them. Mm-hmm. And to get there is like a different pathway every time. It's like, if I do this move to get this move to this move, but they're also trying to do the same thing to you at the same time. So like defending against them while also implementing your own moves simultaneously.
Yeah, because it's like, and people make the chess comparison a lot, and it makes sense because there's a bunch of different ways that a sequence or a match can play out, but you have to like predict. You have to like think, well, what are they thinking? If I do this move, what's his next move going to be? And sometimes they don't give you the reaction that you thought they were going to, and then you have
course
to
correct,
change everything very dynamically, and
that's cool.
It is a lot of fun.
If somebody was interested, isn't like, well, usually, and somebody wants to reach out, right? Hey, you guys do jiu-jitsu? Like, can I come do it? What should I expect? Right? What do people usually ask? What do new clients and new members that are interested usually ask you?
They usually have some idea of it because people don't usually just stumble upon jiu-jitsu itself because it's still kind of like a niche thing. But usually someone will get exposed to it through MMA or something like that. They'll see a fight or be familiar with fighting, and they'll see what's happening on the ground.
Like a UFC fight, or an MMA fight that's popular on TV. And we're like, what is that? And then on the ground, like, is that wrestling, or like, what are they doing on the ground with the grappling?
Right. Yeah. So then that usually has them connect a couple dots before they even like look up a jiu-jitsu school, so to speak. And it's not to say that we don't get people that are just looking for any kind of martial art, and then they come in and they're like, well, what do you guys do? Oh, you do jiu-jitsu? What's that?
Yeah.
That happens. And I basically just kind of try to explain it's like, well, it's like wrestling, because it is, but like everything takes place on the ground, and you're trying to get strangulations and joint locks, and it's really that's the joint locks that you're looking for. That's mostly associated with jiu-jitsu. Plenty of strangles, but it's a little bit easier to present joint locks to like a brand new person.
Yeah. What kind of emotional, like the mental aspect of the sport and training new members and whatever, what should they expect, and what advice would you give them?
So we have all of our classes are mixed levels. We don't separate like, oh, the advanced people come on these days or these hours and the beginners come there. We have everybody work together. Okay. Which I found to be really beneficial, because you'll have somebody who's brand new who's getting help from somebody who's been doing it for a while, and they've been a student there for a while. And
they can see what higher level expert people are doing. Like, oh, that looks,
like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And it's really good. And it really helps the like community of the school, because it kind of like everybody's on the same level playing field. Everybody's learning the same lesson. Everybody's there together, even if they're a beginner. And there isn't really anything that's like, oh, only an advanced jiu-jitsu person could do this move. For the most part, like if you learn how to do the move, anybody can do it. It doesn't need to be overly complicated because again, it comes down to efficiency. So if there's something that's really inefficient, we probably don't worry about going over it too much. So when I teach a lesson, I try to make it as easy and digestible to understand as possible, obviously. And it helps that like I teach the kids classes. So if I can teach a 7-year-old how to do this sequence or how to do this move, I could probably explain it in a way that an adult probably can understand it too.
Yeah, which is good.
And we'll try to like connect the understanding of like why you would do this move, why you'd put your hand here, what are you accomplishing by using this grip as opposed to another grip. So
really nitty gritty details.
Yeah.
The fundamentals.
Yeah.
Say, right?
Yeah. I get real detailed in my instruction. Like the majority of the class is the lesson and practicing the lesson before we get into any kind of like sparring and stuff like that. And we don't spend like 15 minutes doing burpees or running in circles at the beginning of class either. Like classes start on time, which isn't very common in jiu-jitsu schools, but classes start on time and we go right into the lesson. So you get a lot of dedicated time into the material. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then mental state wise, what do you recommend? Or like, because obviously people go in there nervous, right? It's like,
yeah.
I don't want to get hurt. Like, I got to do good.
Yeah. Sometimes people will come in and they'll think that they have to put like a lot of effort, like physical effort into what they're doing. And one of the beautiful parts about jiu-jitsu is a lot of times it doesn't really require like the physical effort to do something. It's just a matter of like leverage and position. So if somebody comes in and they're like a little bit tense in how they move, it's just getting them to like kind of relax and just learn the movements of it before trying to put like any sort of like tension
strength behind it.
Yeah, it's like I've had to explain to a couple of people, it's more like yoga than it is CrossFit, right?
Interesting.
It's like if you have like the mentality of like CrossFit or powerlifting or anything like that, it's like everything's got to be tense and like you got to like maximum effort into every little thing. It's like definitely don't do that.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's more like yoga. That's a great analogy.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember you saying before, like with your competitions too, like emotional management and being relaxed. And that's one of the biggest keys then for some of like practicing and just rolling and just being in your sessions.
Yeah.
Your classes.
Cause it really is. We're just training and learning. Like there's no competition in the school. Even when we're sparring at the end, like sometimes it's not even going to be just like open sparring. It's going to be like, all right, I want you guys to work through this specific position, or I want you guys to work on this specific goal. So you have like a mindset of actually achieving a goal or like winning like a certain game within a game. That's not just like, all right, now spar. And so on the weekends we do competition training, which is a lot of fun because it's rapid fire. So instead of having just like a lesson plan and learning a move, it's like we're going to start with this game on the feet to get better at this specific goal and outcome as far as like wrestling goes, defensively or offensively. And then we're on the ground. It's like we're working this position. We're prioritizing passing the guard. We're prioritizing not letting our guard get past using these techniques. And we put like time constraints on it, so it adds a little bit of urgency behind things. And we do that for, a couple hours on Saturdays and Sundays. And that's my favorite thing. We'll incorporate that sometimes even during the week. And
interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I would also imagine that some people's main motivation is like self-defense. Right? Be confident. If a situation I don't want to have happen arises, do I know what the hell I'm doing? Like, can I do this? Or can I protect myself or my family or my friends, whatever? Is that a common thing you hear from people, like self-defense?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, would you say jiu-jitsu is like going to be the best thing if you get yourself in a situation to be able to manage yourself for self-defense?
I don't like this like speak in absolute, so I don't want to say like, oh, jiu-jitsu is the best, because then we'd be negating a lot of other things that could happen in self-defense. But jiu-jitsu is a really important aspect of self-defense, because it's not always just going to be a fist fight. If it is, you probably have the space to run away. At some point in a lot of self-defense altercations, someone's probably trying to grab you, pull you, hold you down, or just otherwise get a hold of you, or they're trying to get behind you and grab your neck or whatever it is. Or you get knocked down and now you have somebody on top of you, which would be a terrible place for someone to still try to hit you, right? So being comfortable and familiar with like just some of the principles of how to move on the ground, how to get up, how to get somebody off of you, how to defend yourself on the ground is like critical for self-defense. And so jiu-jitsu becomes really good that way. And then like if you're competent, you could also be offensive from the ground. So someone gets on top of you, but now all of a sudden you have attacks off of your back, or now you know how to reverse it, where now you're on top of them, and now you know how to subdue them, hold them down, whatever it is you got to do until cops show up, or
because of your jiu-jitsu skills. Yeah.
And it's you'd be surprised, like if you're brand new to jiu-jitsu, right, and you have somebody that is very good at jiu-jitsu, and you said, okay, I'm going to put the skilled person on top of you, and they're going to hold you down, and you're going to try to get out. Obviously, the person on top knows how to keep you there. It's a panic attack for the person on bottom. And if you've never like felt that or whatever, then you wouldn't want to feel that for the first time in a self-defense situation. And so obviously, like, you know, that isn't something that we would do to somebody, but you'd be surprised how many times, like even just in training, someone is like in a position where they're on their back and the person's on top of them, and they're not sparring or anything, but they have like this moment of realization of like, oh, like, I don't know what I would do. Like this is kind of uncomfortable. Yeah. Just being in that position, even without anybody doing anything like attacking wise. It's like, oh, like I didn't realize I was claustrophobic before I tried this. Yeah. And so it becomes like a thing to overcome sometimes in some ways. Interesting. And again, like you wouldn't want to figure out that you're a claustrophobic person in a self-defense situation. Right.
Yeah. There's like nobody else around. It's a weird, situation.
Why can't I breathe?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and with that being said, I would imagine a lot of women would be concerned or intimidated to do stuff like to join a jiu-jitsu gym or involve MMA stuff. Yeah. Do you guys have like women's defense type of classes or women focused groups?
So we have a good amount of women that train with us. And so they'll train together within the classes. Everybody again is kind of mixed together, but the girls are kind of trained within their group. And so it ends up being really good for the women because they have like their own little like club that, you know, they organize like, oh, we're all going to come on Monday, and they train together or whatever. And eventually, you know, I think we'll probably have like a women's only class, like dedicated class on the schedule. And like, I know we're probably going to do like a women's only open mat or like a women's self-defense thing in the future. We've done like a women's self-defense event in the past. I had a friend of mine come out from California and had her just do like an event for fun. And we've had a number of seminars from women that were like, we just had Misha Tate. She was a UFC bantamweight champion. She was just at our school not that long ago. We had Bia Mesquita, who's like a 25-time jiu-jitsu world champion, do a seminar. We've had Danielle Kelly twice. She's a 1FC grappling champion. So like we've had a lot of, and we make a point to bring in a lot of like the female athletes to come in and represent the female community at our school.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty awesome.
That's cool. That's really awesome. Imagine the self-defense component for a lot. I mean, for most people, it would be a huge like motivator. You know, like what do I do in this situation? You know, I'm on the ground. But, hey, this can actually be an advantage for you if you have these jiu-jitsu skills. The ground is your strength zone.
Yeah, you know? and it's good when, you know, like I said, like it's a point to bring in people like Danielle Kelly or Tubby, Amanda Aliquin, or Misha Tate, so that women get exposed to other women that have these capabilities, right? Because now they can draw that connection.
Yeah.
And because if you just see a bunch of, you know, guys with cauliflower ear or something, like you can't relate to that. That's not for me. It's like, no, there's some really awesome women that do this sport.
Do a lot of people wear the ear protectors?
No. So you don't really get cauliflower ear unless someone's hitting you.
Oh, so it's from striking, not rubbing.
Like from striking on the ground in MMA, you'll get it. You'll get it in maybe a little bit in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because of the gi, like the extra friction in the fabric. If you're, you know, shooting a double leg on somebody and your head's kind of stuck in a weird spot, you'll get that. You'll get it. Obviously, like wrestlers get it all the time, and they're not wearing gis. But surprisingly, like I never get it in no gi. I have like one bit of cauliflower that I got because someone like kneed my ear on the ground, so like wasn't really from jiu-jitsu.
Interesting.
But you know, every once in a while, like, you know, accidents happen, so people might wear the ear protectors from time to time. But for the most part, it's not really necessary.
What exactly is cauliflower ear?
It's cartilage breaking up inside the ear, and then it fills with blood. And then what happens is if the blood doesn't drain, it'll like harden and calcify within the ear, and then it stays looking swollen.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, there's nothing you can do about it at that point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just a battle scar of pride.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So I mean, you own your own gym. You do a lot of classes. You teach. You're competing yourself.
Yeah.
How do you manage time-wise your own fitness, your own training that you want to enjoy,
right?
Your nutrition aspect, right? The whole health and wellness aspect for you.
I would probably say it's actually not that good. I'd probably say it's not that good. I don't sleep much at all. So I could tell this would be more of like a do as I say, not as I do type of thing. Because I don't eat very often.
So you're non-purposefully intermittent fasting.
Yeah, I do like intermittent.
Or is
fasting.
it purposeful?
So yeah, it's purposeful.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're purposely intermittent fasting.
Yeah, it's purposeful. I mean, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. If I'm gonna eat in the morning, it wouldn't be till like after 9, just because I'm in classes all day. But even then, if I get like a small gap between like 9 and 11, I'm usually not eating. I'm usually not even hungry. So I won't eat until between like 2 and 4.
For the first time of the day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then depending
I'd be dying.
I know.
I'm a hungry dude.
Someone needs to study me and design a science project. So I might give you a panic attack if I tell you exactly how this works, but I usually eat between 2 and 4, and I will usually have 4 eggs, just the egg yolk, with buttered toast.
Okay.
And that's it. And then at night, when I get home, I'm usually not hungry. So I usually won't eat at night. If I trained really hard, I might have more eggs. If I have like chicken or steak or something like that, I might have that. My big thing at night, if I'm craving dessert, is just frozen fruit. Get frozen fruit. It's already clean cut. Frozen mangoes and frozen raspberries are fantastic. Frozen blueberries, fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like way better than ice cream. Like way better.
You just eat it out of the bag, or you put it in a blender, or like what do you do?
No, just grab a spoon to the bag.
Just go down. Yeah. Got it. Perfect.
So I don't eat and I don't sleep.
Okay.
I don't sleep. I don't sleep at all. I even recently did like I don't know if it was an experiment or not, but it's something that had been on my mind just because of the way things are, where it's like I would have like a 48-hour day instead of a 24-hour day. So I did a week where I only slept Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then again Saturday night. And other than that, I was awake straight through.
What do you do?
Be productive or like actually rest. I've had this conversation with somebody before where it's like sleeping and rest are not the same thing, as they are often associated with the same things. Like, oh, you have free time, you should go to sleep so you get some rest. It's like, yes. So sleep is super important. Even though I just said I don't sleep, sleeping is incredibly important, and I love it. It's the favorite thing I do if and when I get to do it. But it's not the same as actual rest. Like you need like downtime to like down regulate and
like decompression time,
and that's different from sleep. And you can't sacrifice one for the other always. And so a lot of times I may not be sleeping, but I'm resting and trying not to necessarily always be productive. But there's a lot of necessary rest, and then the other aspect of that that's maybe in like a third category is like only when you're done resting and finished with the down regulating, if you don't have to go right to sleep or you don't have to start working again, there's like this other category where you actually get to be like creative or artistic. And that's like another thing. And like that can't take place unless you've rested.
Interesting.
It's a really strange thing you have to try and figure out. There's plenty of people that can like force themselves like through the same mechanisms of being productive. I'm gonna make myself be creative. That's not the same as actually being at peace enough to like observe the world around you and have thought and have creative ideas. And that can only happen once you're rested.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do they call that state from the people you've researched that with?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, they might just call it like the creative state or like the well-rested state. I don't know what it is, but
so if somebody's needing a creative space, headspace, step one would be like, we need to down-regulate your sympathetic.
Yep.
Get decompress, and then once you've deregulated and decompressed well enough, that might be the best opportune moment to get in a creative space.
Right. Yeah. And,
interesting.
And I think like the hardest part of that is the amount of time it would take to get into that state, because you have to be productive X amount, like depending on what your job or whatever is. It's like, well, the majority of your time you're being productive. You're dealing with kids, or you're dealing with work, you're dealing with whatever it is. And then you have your down regulation time, which could be, 2 hours watching a movie or TV or listening to something, whatever it is. And usually by the time you do both of those things, it's just time to sleep. But if you had extra time, and people will discover this state when they take vacation, assuming they're not like, running through airports and stuff like that. But like
a super high anxiety.
But like anytime somebody's had like a 3-day weekend or a 4-day weekend or holiday, if they haven't filled their time with other stuff, all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I haven't picked up this guitar in 6 months, but I feel like doing it now. Yeah. Like, oh, I feel, I feel like reading for leisure. Maybe it's just called leisure time. Maybe that's what it is. But like you won't find that time until you're down regulated. And maybe that's why, people will find ways to like force themselves through down regulation through other means and stuff like that, so that they can be creative. There's like a link through that. But
it's interesting.
Yeah. That time is like the time that I think is lost on most people in America's insane hustle culture.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Would you say, is jiu-jitsu for you the down regulation time, like a decompression time? If you're not like instructing?
I'm going to say no. It's fun. It's a little bit more of my productive time, I think, because it's what I do.
And it's so mentally stimulating with like the chess game.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of creativity and thought that goes behind it, but I wouldn't consider that my leisure time.
Would you consider it your, okay, so it's not your creative time, and not your down regulating time. It's your productive time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you would compete at a higher level if it became into your creative time? Like pre-competition, down regulate, decompress, get into a state where it's like, I feel like just playing the guitar, that's your competitive state.
I don't think it can be, because it's like a physical exertion. I don't think those two states can coexist. It does get to a point, like I said, if I'm competing all the time, then now all of a sudden there isn't anxiety in my competition and stuff like that. And it does get to be fun. Like I don't really get worked up, and I can be artistic and creative in competition because I'm relaxed, but I wouldn't consider that like my creative time or my leisure time. Like I can get into a space of being creative or being relaxed where I maybe want to think about or even like research jiu-jitsu in terms of being creative. But like, even I feel like if I'm researching or I'm watching an instructional, I'm no longer at leisure. Now I'm being productive.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So it's a hard state to describe, and I'm sure there's some scientists that who's ripping out what little hair they have left listening to me.
He's botching everything.
They broke their glasses.
This is exactly the opposite, I will say.
Yeah.
So what do you do then for your leisure time, not your leisure time, your decompression time, your rest time, when it's like, I don't know, I would assume like 2:30 in the morning, you're not sleeping, but you're resting.
Yeah.
What do you do for the rest and the decompression?
I will play video games a lot. I like movies a lot. I watch a lot of movies, a couple television shows here and there that I'll watch. So yeah,
so video games, movies, it allows you to disconnect, decompress, deregulate, be restful.
A little bit like it's the productive form of escapism, I guess.
Yeah, right.
I'm using it to kind of like just chill out.
Yeah. I would say I'm probably really, I don't know if I've ever identified it, but I think very similar to that.
Yeah.
I definitely need to like unwind and decompress before I go to sleep.
Yeah. And I think, in professions like ours, granted, we might do a lot behind the screen or behind the phone as far as like content and things like that. But the majority of what we do, thankfully, it takes place in the real world and not behind a screen.
Yeah, face to face.
So it would make sense that for us, down regulation takes place in front of the screen. Or maybe somebody who's stuck in an office all day staring at a computer, like their down regulation might just be sitting outside by the pool or like staring out,
I would definitely still prefer that. Go outside and like listen to the birds, and just like enjoy some descending sunlight, know.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefit to sitting out on the balcony, like watching the sunset for a bit of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you don't I can't imagine that. Monday, Wednesday, Friday sleep.
Yeah.
Tuesday, Thursday.
It was pretty rough. Well, like Monday morning wasn't so bad. Wednesday was tough. Yeah. And then Friday was okay. It was weird. But again, it's like there's always so much work to do, and there's always just so much stuff where it's like it really does feel like 24 hours is not enough for a full day, because like I think if like a normal person has like 8 hours of work and 8 hours of sleep and then 8 hours of whatever else, like I don't work for 8 hours. I work for like 14. So I need like 14 hours of work and then 14 hours of something else, and then I don't sleep. So it's like it was almost like a way to try and be more efficient with my time. But I don't want to do that. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
But the alternative is like, I take like a 2-hour nap, like every once in a while.
My gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's not good.
Super unique.
Yeah, I like I said, I wish somebody studied it because I don't know how anything is working at this point.
And 4 eggs, butter toast, and then a handful of frozen mangoes and raspberries.
Yeah, and then you become the #1 ranked grappler of 2023.
Yeah, there you go. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Just eliminate your sleep, and you can do. So and then you don't eat again until the next day at 2 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So eat 2 or 4 o'clock, around 2 to 4, late at mid afternoon. 4 eggs and toast.
Yeah.
2 pieces of toast or 1 piece of toast.
4.
4 pieces of toast.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
4 pieces of butter toast, and then 4 fried egg yolks.
Egg yolks.
Don't eat the egg white. Yeah.
How come?
I don't know. When I was a kid, I never did.
Just didn't like them?
No one explained to me that was edible. So I just always ate the egg, just eat the toast and the egg yolk. And then when I became older, I ate egg whites, because everybody was like, oh, egg whites, protein, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't mind the way that they tasted. But now I just have the egg yolk.
Interesting.
And what's interesting is like I've never had a problem with eggs, but there's some people that say like eggs bother their stomach or something like that. I think it only happens if you eat the egg whites. I think if you just had egg yolks, I don't think you would have like your stomach wouldn't cramp or hurt or anything if you just had egg yolk.
Interesting.
But again, like I'm not a scientist. I'm just driving scientists crazy today. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, if
Certainly
somebody,
nutritionist.
if a person was super interested in like, oh man, I've always wanted to get into jiu-jitsu or MMA, what advice would you recommend for them?
If you wanted to get into MMA, I think you'd have to be really careful about your school selection.
So the school selection is a top priority.
Yeah,
Like
especially
what culture, what instructors.
Especially for MMA, because again, MMA it's fighting and it's fight culture, and you're gonna have a different group of training partners for MMA. And so you need to, MMA is popular now, so you'll get, young kids are just like, I want to fight. And then they learn real quick, like you probably don't, or you're just not ready for it yet, right?
Right.
If you're looking to get into jiu-jitsu or kickboxing, there's plenty of schools that try to do both. And like technically we do both, but like I'm very forthcoming that like we're a jiu-jitsu school, not a kickboxing school. So I would find a school that kind of has like its one central identity, and because that's the thing that they're good at, and that's the thing that they know that they're good at, and they're not going to try and like go into multiple lanes. And then you would just have to look into that school as far as like, well, what kind of stuff are they teaching? What does the culture look like? What kind of language do they use on Facebook or Instagram or on their website, things like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And just see if it's aligned with what you're looking for. Reviews help a lot too. And just like the kind of content they kind of put out, and like the stuff that they put into the community. There's a lot of schools that don't do anything or don't compete, but a school that competes is within the niche community. And then you think about like your own local community. Like we're the only school, I think, in the entire state of Florida that's part of Heroes Jiu-Jitsu, which is like a veterans program for that offers free classes for veterans and first responders. And we do that any of the classes on Monday. So it's not even just one class. It's any class on Monday is open to veterans and first responders. We have a strong female community, which I also think is a very important part. Look for diversity in the members, another thing you should look for in your schools. And, do we do a lot of events and stuff like that? Like, again, being engaged in the community. We've had, in the last 3 years, we've had like over 50 seminars from professional grapplers, world champions, things like that. Like we're a destination spot, and there's a lot of schools that don't bring in.
That's cool.
Other instructors. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and maybe it's a financial thing, and they haven't figured out a way to like make money off of it because they want to make money off of it. But it should be more about just bringing like the community together.
And we've been in there.
Yeah, you guys have been there.
Ankle stability workshops,
right.
low back workshops.
So that's another thing is like we've gone outside of just jiu-jitsu. We brought yourself in a few times to go over like injury prevention, because that's really important.
Shoulder. That's what we did. We did an ankle one. We did a shoulder one. I think we did a low back one.
Yeah.
Like injury prevention for shoulder stability or whatever.
Right. So like having the resources like that for your members is super important. We've brought in Natalie Addison for mobility seminars. She just opened up her own gym in West Palm Beach, Movement West Palm Beach. She's been in the community for a long time. She's fantastic. We've partnered with her for multiple events to do mobility in conjunction with like the coffee shop, Composition Coffee, next door to us. We brought in Coach Kate, who's like a kettlebell expert personal trainer. We brought her in to do kettlebell workshops and things like that. So again, like we're really engaged with like our local community, also with people that are doing the right thing the right ways. Mm-hmm. And again, like not every school does that. And if you're looking for a school, you should probably find one that does.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out? Instagram and an email. Rogue Wave West Palm Beach, which
Rogue Wave WPB.
WPB.
Yeah.
Okay. DM.
Yeah. Instagram for sure. Same Rogue Wave WPB on Facebook. Email is just contact@roguewavewpb.com. And the website is roguewavewpb.com.
Gotcha.
Those are all good ways. Instagram is probably the best.
Or just pop in.
Yeah, you can come by. Yeah, that'd be fine. I'd like a heads up first. I'd like a heads up first, but yeah,
everybody to come in.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's awesome. All right, cool, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming in and sharing more of your story and some of your insights and your sleep schedule insights.
Yeah. Yeah. One day we'll have to talk about some fitness stuff too from my previous, but
yeah, we'll get you in because force fitness, personal training. That was another. I mean, you been doing that for a long time and bringing those elements into Rogue Wave. Yeah. So we'll have to have you in again and talk about the fitness component.
That'd be fun. It'd be a fun conversation. I don't get to talk about that stuff as much as anymore, but I still love to.
We'll get you on. Yeah. Round
good.
2.
Yeah.
In a couple weeks for sure. Sweet, man. Well, dude, thank you for coming in. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you. And if you have any questions or anything, you can always reach out to us at team@athleterc.com or just call us 561-899-8725. We're always open to answering questions or suggestions and comments and stuff for the podcast. If you have any issues, definitely reach out and we'll catch y'all next time.